He needs a strike. Burton needs a bolt.
The 2024 Tennessee baseball team was a special team. They had power, contact, speed, a great head coach who was funny, great assistant head coaches who did great jobs, and also swag and leadership. The 2024 Tennessee Volunteers were a special team, and today I'm going to try and go over their entire season in one video. By the way, before we do get started, I real quick want to say I'm going to go over like 5 or 7 minutes real quick talking about the offseason, the regular season, and then we're going to then get into the postseason then for most of the video. We'll talk about every postseason game, like the offseason, like what happened like with the previous team or what the team was at the time. So, without further ado, let's get into it.
Only a freshman on a 1-1. Left field, and there is some juice. Pearson back, still going. Oh, he makes the catch on the track to end it.
In 2023, Tennessee would have their season end to LSU in the College World Series. The end of a magical run for this team. Definitely a great team here, but definitely could use some upgrades. So now, it's time for the offseason. There was a lot of Tennessee players that entered the draft and the transfer portal. Right now, I'm going to name right now every single one of them that entered the draft and the transfer portal. Zach Joyce, Maui Ahuna, Andrew Lindsay, Seth Halverson, Kyle Booker, Hollis Fanning, Chase Burns, Chase Dolander, Jared Dickey, and finally, Bryce Jenkins. The two big names here were Chase Dolander and Chase Burns. It was a different story. Him and Tony Vitello disagreed about him being a starting pitcher. He wanted to be a starting pitcher, so he ended up going in the transfer portal and going to Wake Forest, which was not a good move at the end. Now for Dolander, he was just so good, so he would end up going to the MLB draft and be drafted 8th overall by the Colorado Rockies. But Tennessee would also get a bunch of transfers as well. These are all the transfers right here that got playing time throughout the season. Robin Villanelle was a good DH to the start of the season, but unfortunately would get benched. Dalton Bargo was a good bat for most of the season. Unfortunately, again, would get benched, but he would come back for the Supers, and he would have a great performance against a team that we'll talk about later. Cannon Peoples was supposed to be the starting catcher, but unfortunately would get benched because he would give up too many runs and wasn't really the good defensive catcher. And finally, our favorite transfer, the transfer from Clemson, Billy Amick, the first round pick, and by far the best transfer we would have. Now to meet the lineup. Christian Moore, otherwise known as SEMO, is a power-hitting second baseman and the MVP of this team. Blake Burke, a power-hitting first baseman and one of the sweetest swings in all of college baseball. Look at that swing, man. That is so nice. Dylan Dreiling, the left fielder who had power and was probably the most clutch player, actually the most clutch player on the team. He hit this home run last year that pretty much saved our season and made it to where we were last year. Hunter Ensley, not as much power as the other guys, but his biggest strength was his defense out in center field. A great defensive outfielder who will be back next year. Boris Tiers, a power-hitting right fielder who was also very clutch. Dean Curley, our first freshman. This spot was originally supposed to go to Ariel Antigua for shortstop, but after Antigua broke his hand, Curley stepped in and looked promising, showing a lot of power and also being a great defensive shortstop. Reese Chapman, Cannon Peoples, and Dalton Bargo would all have the DH position at some time this year. There was no really DH because they just rotated between 3 guys. Billy Amick I kind of already talked about, but a power-hitting third baseman and a first-round pick. And finally, catcher Cal Stark. He didn't have a lot of power, but let me tell you right now, he was a great defensive catcher. As Tony V would say,
Cal Stark is my guy. That's my guy.
Yeah, Cal Stark was obviously his guy. Now time to meet the pitchers. Chris Stamos is a very good pitcher, but he's really not a starter for Tennessee. He's an opener for A.J. Causey. Causey is not a fastball pitcher. He's a breaking ball pitcher with some of the highest RPMs you will see, and he is one of the best pitchers on this staff. Drew Beam is Tennessee's best pitcher. He is an ace and a fastball pitcher and will go in the second round of the MLB draft this year. Final pitcher is Xander Sechrist. The clutchest pitcher on this Tennessee staff is a lefty. And by the way, Tennessee will always pitch Stamos and Causey game 1, Beam game 2, and Sechrist game 3. Nate Snead, who has a 99-mile-per-hour fastball, Kirby Connell, who has the best mustache in baseball, and Aaron Combs, your closer, are the 3 best relievers on this Tennessee roster. Now you know the supporting cast, it's time for the regular season. This is part 1. You will see part 2 later. See you guys. Subscribe.